and good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Kendra. I'm super excited. This is the third panel I've been hosting. I will have hosted since I joined as a member a couple of months ago. So it's been a great experience helping with planning. Daniel's also a member here. So we have a number of creatives and entrepreneurs in the set. So thank you guys all for coming and supporting our events and the mission. And Daniel, I'll let you introduce yourself before we get into the chat.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Daniel Livingstone. I'm a commercial fitness photographer based right here in Chicago, born and raised. I've started my professional business back in 2018 when I was still a junior in college to try to get a head start on my career before I finished school. And that's exactly what I've been doing ever since then. So never had a proper full-time job, always been a freelance creative.
Yes, and we love to hear that. So thank you again. We're really happy to have you as a member and have you here to speak tonight. So I'm actually really excited about this topic and what we're going to be discussing. I know a number of you work in different industries, so I hope that you all are able to get something from this. And we'll do a Q&A at the end, as always, for about 15, 20 minutes. So we'll be talking about business strategy, logistics, financing, and all of the above. So just to kick it off, we talk a lot in a number of industries and brands about customer relationship management, customer success, and I think it's important to understand how that translates in the creative space. So, Daniel, could you share a little bit about that in terms of what your personal mission has been, how you've executed that, and what that looks like in future terms?
Do you mean like specifically around CRMs or just in general?
Yep.
So when you hear people say like CRM stands for customer relationship manager, it's usually a software or a tool or a system that allows you to kind of put all of your business into one space and hopefully gives you a really optimized workflow whenever you're running a business of essentially any kind. You don't have to be a creative or an artist or a freelancer to utilize a CRM. It has a lot of applications, but the way that I really use it for my business is it is my lead funnel. It is my delivery system. It is the first thing that you experience as a client of mine. And it is also the last thing you experience as a client of mine. So I personally use a software called Studio Ninja, and anyone attending has the opportunity to get 50% off a subscription if they're interested in checking it out. But the reason I like it is because it has a lot of automations built in, and they're not necessarily the only ones that do this. There are alternatives out there. If Studio Ninja isn't your style, there's 17 Hats, there's Honeybook. I'm sure you guys have heard these things or gotten like ads for these things on social media. But regardless of what you end up choosing, I think having a CRM period is really important, especially for running a business, especially as a creative, because I know we can all be kind of right brain thinkers and creatives, a little chaotic, a little messy, a little disorganized. So having a tool that does that stuff for you is just really important. So the first thing is if I get a lead or someone approaches me or we have a conversation and I think that I could potentially work with them, I'm going to take their name, I'm going to take their email address, I'm going to create a client profile inside of that software for me. And that just keeps track of everyone that I've been talking to. So gone are the days of keeping a giant stack of business cards next to your desk and then never going through them. But having it all digitized and available for me by category with filters and ratings and stuff just makes it really easier for me as a creative to sort those things out on my computer instead of up here. After that, I have built an automation system where after I get a lead, after I put that in, I usually put some notes on like how I met, what we talked about, what I think we could do together. And I have a bunch of email templates built out that allow me to connect with them really easily and even automatically send an email for me X amount of days after that interaction. So I'll give them a little breathing room and say, oh, I met this person. They might want to do headshots together. I have a headshot email built out saying, hey, I heard you're interested in this. Here's a small portfolio of mine that shows that I can do this. And I'll have that automatically send out maybe like 3, 4, 5 days after the interaction. Just a little refresher. Once they follow up, I can, through the program, send them a quote and say, here's what this costs. I have like packages set up for that. It gives them details of everything that they would receive, what it would cost. If they accept that, it would automatically create a job for me. And then there are an infinite number of ways you can automate. But the simplest way is just lead, quote, job, and then delivery system. So they get their photos through Studio Ninja. I post them in a gallery online, and then an automatic email is sent out when the job is done, letting them know, hey, this is where you can download these, and then an invoice is attached to that. And then they can pay that through the platform too. So my hands are really off from the day we met to them getting the photos, with the exception of the actual shoot.
Yeah, that definitely sounds aligned, and I love the automation of it. Obviously, a lot of us have done sales or some type of account management in our past, so it's the whole thing from prospecting all the way to closing. With that and being able to elevate the client experience, what types of jobs have you found to be the most successful? I know you've worked with clients like Barry's, a number of wellness accounts, which I'd love for you to share with the group a little bit more about. But in those different industries, what types of work have you, found the most successful, and what are people reaching out to you for?
So it's actually interesting. In my career for years and years and years, up until very recently, have always heard be a specialist, be a specialist, be a specialist. And I really
Mhm.
took that to heart. And then in 2021, I think, I was really trying to rack my brain, figuring out like, okay, it's time to niche down. Everyone needs a niche. I heard the word niche a million times back in like 2021,
Mhm.
2020. And I was like, okay, fine, pick an industry.
Mhm.
And I went through a lot of experimentation in the first like 5 years that I was doing photography. I think between like 2015 and 2020, I had shot everything from like street, portrait, architecture, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of sports. Like it was all over the place, some still life here and there. And I just spent 5 years figuring out what I enjoy shooting, like what's fun to do, what do I like, what do I connect with. And then in
Mhm.
2021, I really found that fitness being a big part of my life was something that was real to me, it was authentic to me, and it was something that I did want to shoot and be more active in with my creative work.
Mhm.
So in 2021, I picked fitness as a niche, but in the 3-ish years prior, before that, 4-ish years, when I started my business, a lot of my income was actually coming from event photography. And I've been doing event photography very consistently throughout my career. It just
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily something that I always advertised. So it was always like the bread and butter, the revenue stream for keeping the business afloat, but it was never like the primary like glamour of what I did or like super well known. Honestly, there are still people that really don't know that I do a lot of event photography because I'm
Mhm.
not promoting it. It's not an active part of my social media presence or my online presence,
Mhm.
but it's always running in the background. So I think now when people say like you need a specialty, they mean you need like a primary thing to advertise because you can't advertise too many things at once and it just gets really confusing. Um, so be a specialist, but no one who's a specialist only actually shoots one thing, especially for money. I think there are a
Mhm.
lot of people who are studio portrait photographers who probably just do headshots, or fashion photographers who do catalog, or what like still life photographers who may do portraits or events as well. So there's always something else going on. There's no really way to stay afloat doing one really specific thing because I don't think any singular particular thing has enough volume and market to
Generate revenue.
generate revenue to
Yeah.
like uphold an entire business.
Definitely. I think that's such great advice too, especially for anyone starting out. The word niche is very common, so I agree with that 100%. In terms of, since we were talking about finance and like analyzing that, what types of software have you used or found successful to keep track of bookkeeping? Do you personally work with somebody to help with all of that, or is that something that you prefer to do hands on?
So in the earliest days of my business, like the first year, 2 years of my business, it was really, really small. We started from like the first floor. So I was just keeping track of everything manually, like either in my head, I was just constantly aware of what my bank account was at, what my
Mhm.
transactions were recently, and I just monitored
Mhm.
my bank app like daily.
Mhm.
So I was just trying to do like a lot of manual documentation of what the deal was at the time. And then when it came time for like taxes, I actually was filing taxes on my own through like TurboTax. And it was super easy because I wasn't making a ton of money. There
Right.
wasn't a huge amount of line items going on. It was not very complicated. But
Mhm.
then over the years, the business started to grow. Things got more complex. There was a lot more to keep track of. And then very quickly after like the second year, I realized that I could not just keep my bank account in my head at all times,
Right.
especially because I'm working more often. There's more things happening in my life. And yeah, there's just tons of transactions happening all the time, whether I'm getting paid or buying a bunch of stuff. So I started using QuickBooks. Well, before that, I was just using Excel. So what I would do
Mhm.
is every year-ish, I would take my entire bank statement as a CSV or like an Excel spreadsheet, and I would manually import all that data, and then I would do a bunch of fancy Excel stuff and kind of sort it out my own, creating categories, and doing all these filters to make sure that everything was keeping on track, get my own analytics. And then that got too complicated on top of that. And then doing taxes manually really sucked, but I did do it for like 2 years after that, just using spreadsheets that I made myself. It was not glamorous. And every year it took me an entire week to do my own taxes. And I budgeted like, okay, tax time is coming up. I would genuinely not book anything for like a week because I knew I had to just spend that whole week figuring out tax stuff on my own. I got really tired of that really fast. So I started using QuickBooks, which I found has been really helpful, as well as, like automated things like Studio Ninja or CRM, where I can take payments through the CRM and they're keeping track of stuff like that for me. So
the automation again.
like Square was a good one. I did a lot of invoicing through Square, and Square gave me really good insights and kept track of some good bookkeeping for me. And then after Square, I kind of transitioned over to like Studio Ninja and QuickBooks for that. I think there's more like advanced versions, but there are a ton of like free options out there. Square was great, especially because Square can take payments through credit cards and there's fees attached to a lot of like payment systems. I was not about the fees. I'm still not about the fees, honestly. So I was taking payments through Zelle, and I had to do a lot of like custom work to make Square like allow that. But I was still having people pay me through Zelle despite using Square for invoicing. And it was kind of a hassle for a while. But now that I use a CRM, it's a little easier because now I have a bank transfer option. I still have a Zelle option. And I think recently they just implemented a credit card option through Stripe so that I still can get paid through credit cards. And I find that most helpful because I've gotten feedback over the years about clients being like, can I pay this with a credit card? And then I have to go into my Square account and change all my settings. Like, yeah, you can do a credit card. Hold on, just and then do that. And then there would be the fee, and then I'd have to add the fee and then do the math to make that work. So I wasn't actually losing any money. But I have found that giving clients the opportunity to pay in the most amount of ways possible just overall increases the customer experience. So having those options is really, really important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And just switching gears a little bit, as have worked and been running your business for the last couple of years. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
What if you were, providing some advice for people kind of just coming into the game or just starting out? What expenses would you suggest or, remind them like that they need to look out for, or what types of surprises maybe came your way? And what types of expenses did you have to plan ahead for in order to make sure that you were breaking even or that you were staying ahead?
So I'm going to start with some really like hard, cold truths.
Please.
Being a creative is extremely difficult. And right now it's more difficult than it's ever been. Like this past year has been really, really hard. Even for people who have been regularly working in the past, we've seen a decrease like all across the board in almost every industry. So that already kind of sucks. So if you're just getting started, just know that the odds are stacked against you. Let that fuel you. Let that give you the fire to like push through and really prove everyone wrong that you can do it. But yeah, when it comes to like real world expenses, I think start where you're at. Get the bare bones amount of like equipment or resources you need to just create or do your job. Like for a photographer, get a camera, get a laptop. That's really almost all you need, with the exception of like lenses and memory cards and stuff like that, all the little accessories that are required. But start where you're at. You do not need the fanciest equipment to make something good. You do not need the nicest like resources to make quality work. There are people who came before you that worked with technology that is so outdated now, but have made work that has lasted a lifetime.
Right.
In any other industries, I think the universals for that are, if you want to be self-employed, learn how taxes work as a self-employed person, because I spent years learning the hard way how these things work. So if you're self-employed, you probably want to be filing for quarterly estimated taxes. So every 4 months, you are going to be making a tax payment. You don't have a paycheck for the government to take things out of, so you are responsible for that entirely on your own. When you do get paid for jobs, put away about like 30% of all the money you make in a separate account and don't touch it, because that's basically what you're going to need to pay taxes. Like that is money that you do not have. So I think a lot of people get in trouble when they think that they're balling out, and then tax season comes and they're in the red. And I've been guilty of this a small handful of times. So yeah, I think that's like taxes is the biggest one. Finances, low overhead is going to be the real thing that keeps you in business. I think like not having a ton of responsibilities when it comes to like rent on the nicest apartment you could find. Like if you have to come down on rent, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Vehicle expenses are kind of tough to get around. If you don't absolutely need a vehicle, I would not suggest having one, especially in the city. I went for a really, really long time without owning a car and
Yeah.
still managing to maintain my business. Some ways I got around that was I used public transit very heavily. For my photography, I created an extremely mobile kit, which was just like a camera, a lens, and a flash that I could
Mm-hmm.
fit inside of a backpack. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I did for a lot of my jobs. And that allowed me to either divvy bike to jobs, take my own bike to jobs, but like keeping the travel overhead as low as possible was a big one. Um, or even like use what resources are available to you, and there's really no shame in asking for help. Like there are productions where I've needed to bring equipment to set and I didn't own a car, and I just asked my friends, hey, can I borrow your car or can I rent your car? I'll buy you
Mm-hmm.
gas. Like I'll pay for the gas for the car, I'll fill your tank up. That was always my deal with friends is if you let me borrow your car for a gig, I will always fill your tank up to full no matter where you're at. That was always the deal. Sometimes the
It's the
tank
right
was
thing to
at like three
do.
quarters and that was a good
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was like almost empty. And you know what? I was more than happy to cover that for them because they were doing me a
Yeah.
huge favor by letting me grow my career.
Right. No, we talked about that a little bit at the pricing in your power panel for some of our photographers. So that's makes a lot of sense. Okay, so my favorite topic, business strategy. We talk about a lot of data and analyzing that and insights in all these industries across the board, especially now because the software is there and the information is. So how have you allowed or enabled data to help you make certain decisions, especially when you're looking at seasonality and you bringing up the tax breakdowns quarterly? Thank you for sharing that, by the way. So how have you kind of allowed that to help streamline your business and help guide your decision making?
I've always been a really like data driven thinker when
Hmm.
making like key decisions. That's just kind of like the left brain attitude is like results based or like outcome based decision making.
Hmm.
One thing that I've been doing a little more in recent years is like I was talking about those spreadsheets earlier with all my bank statement data. I actually still do that because
Okay.
I think it's useful data to just have all your transactions, and QuickBooks kind of helps with like sorting that stuff out for me. It takes a little bit of the manual work out of it. But one thing I started doing recently is going through all of my invoices or my like accounts payable, looking at all the clients and what they paid me. So seeing like who
Hmm.
my top 5 clients are and who I made the most amount of money from in that year period. And then for Christmas, I actually created a care package gift for them and hand delivered my top 5 clients like fun little like fitness care packages with like health
Hmm.
bars and like water bottles and like so a little bit of workout equipment and like a little bit of like towels and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, and that was like they really appreciated that. And that was a very data driven decision. It wasn't just like, oh, who are my favorite clients or what clients made me feel the best. It was like, no, who is really keeping my business afloat? Who is supporting me the most? And
Yeah.
who deserves the most thank you?
Absolutely. Yeah. On that note, can you share more about what your favorite type of client has been to work with, if you have any examples, and then who may have been a little more challenging? You don't have to share names, just kind of the overall experience of your interactions with them.
Well, I'll start with favorites because I'm lucky enough to have worked with a lot of clients who recognize that my job is to make their job easier. They are hiring
Mm-hmm.
a photographer or a creative expert because they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to think about those things. So,
Right.
my favorite clients to work with are the ones who know what they want but are still hands off in the process. So,
Mm-hmm.
I love being
Yeah.
very, very descriptive and very communicative in like pre production or like before we show up to the job and being like, I need to know every single thing that you want out of this working relationship. Like, what are the deliverables? What's the scheduling? What's the logistics? I need to know all that information before I show up. And then when we do show up, I am hopefully prepared enough to just go wild and do everything they need me to do without having to ask any questions. And
Mm-hmm.
my goal is for them to not worry and to not be bothered by me needing clarification on anything. So I find with especially the event work that I do, I've been doing it for so long that I feel like I bring a sense of confidence for those clients where I've had clients who've never hired a photographer before and they're like, hey, I don't really know how this works. I think I need this. I think, and I go, It's okay. I've done this a lot of times. I
Hmm.
think you're probably going to need this, this, and this. Does that all sound good to you? And they say yes. And I say, okay, that's exactly what I'll do. And then I shoot it and then I deliver it very quickly and without question and send them the invoice right away. And everything's just kind of taken care of through some of those automations. And some of that is just like good, good customer experience. So those are my favorite clients to work with who just let me rock, but
Hmm.
are very clear and communicative to me about their expectations. The more difficult clients to work with are the ones who either don't know what they want uh, or don't know how to tell me what they want. And
Hmm.
you deal with that a lot as a creative expert or working in the creative industry. People
Yeah.
who are hiring you are usually not creatives. That's where you come in. So there is an
Yeah.
education portion to what we do about informing clients how things work, especially if they haven't worked with a ton of creatives before. Um, I find that influencers can be difficult to deal with because they have kind of one foot in, one foot out, where they
Hmm.
are in the creative world, but they don't have the professional experience that we might have.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of like clashing to where I think they think they know more than they know.
Hmm. You have to manage
And
expectations
then
or
we have to
reset.
really manage those
Yeah.
expectations in a like
Yeah.
professional and delicate way that doesn't hurt anyone's ego and is super like very PR.
Hmm. I mean, I think you'd be a great customer success manager just based on your interactions. And, it's again, all of these skill sets I think are transferable. So, yeah, and transitioning and moving into our next topic of mindset and habits. I think obviously you've got your head on your shoulders, you're, thinking about all these things, customer first mindset, and really understanding the base and foundation of your business and your business goals. So, can you share a little bit about what we talked about with the concept of resistance?
Yeah. So if you haven't heard of it, there is a book that I highly recommend called The War of Art. It's a play on the art of war, but trust me, it's a different book. It's by I want to say it's by Stephen Pressfield, and it is a phenomenal book. It's really short, really easy read. The entire first third of the book is just about this concept of resistance and resistance with a capital R. And he just spends like 100 pages outlining resistance as this like faceless, formless entity that exists but doesn't have a physical form, that exists to stop you from creating or just stop you from doing whatever you want to do. Whatever you seek to do, resistance enters and has all of these crazy ways of preventing you from accomplishing the things that you seek out to do. And then the second third of the book talks about like what the artist is and what we do, and then the muse and how we relate to these things. And then
Mhm.
the last third of the book talks about overcoming resistance and what you can do about it. But like resistance, like plays for keeps. It doesn't stop. It's formless. It doesn't sleep. It finds very deceptive ways to trick you. And this all
Yeah.
sounds like kind of like ethereal, but it does have like physical manifestations where it's like scrolling is a form of resistance. Social media is a huge form of resistance if you use it not the right way. Um, Self doubt, lack of self confidence, um, people trying to put you down. Those are all forms of resistance. It comes in a lot of forms and it's a very dangerous thing. And he really makes it this like terrifying entity, but it is ever present in everyone's life, no matter what you do, outside of even
Mhm.
creatives.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I think, especially with a creative mind, and again, the title and topic of this event tonight, there's some synergy there. So, yeah, next we'll dive into logistics and operations. So, we'll talk a little bit at the end about AI because I know everyone's tired of hearing about that, but very relevant. So, can you chat a little bit about your experience with logistics and maybe how that's been beneficial with your automation systems, and then what types of ops you're looking to explore?
So I actually didn't start out as a creative. Professionally, I have, but like in my life, I never really started out as creative, and I didn't really think of myself as a creative person that much. My
Mhm.
background was always in like academia and math and science. It was very
Mhm.
like type A, left brain, like very analytical and
Mhm.
logistical. And my mom is kind of the same way. Like my mom raised me to be very like producer style, like think about logistics, think about problem solving, always trying to like fix errors or correct things. So I was really raised with that mindset of like optimization. And then it wasn't until I was doing photography as a hobby for, I want to say, like 2 years. And I was going to school at Loyola University with a major in political science and a minor in mathematics.
Wow.
And then immediately after my first year as a freshman, I had, through some interesting circumstances, my parents essentially made me go to art school, which is super backwards from the normal story.
Yeah.
But I was essentially forced to go to art school, and I was not having any of it. I was not enjoying it. I did not want to do it. And they just said, look, you just need a bachelor's degree in whatever. We don't care. Just go, pick your major, finish school. I said, okay, fine. So I went to Columbia College Chicago for my sophomore year of college, and it was at art school that I actually learned you could make a career out of creative work. Which I thought everyone who just did art was a starving artist or like some rich person's kid who could do whatever they want and it didn't matter. And some of that is still partially true to this day. But I really learned that there are entire industries about creative work. Like I didn't know photographers could make a decent living with high profile commercial clients. I didn't know that sound engineers and producers and mixers and sound techs could like make actual salaries working for legitimate companies.
Right.
Or like staffed photographers or like marketing people who do creative work like in-house production. So it was actually at art school that I learned you could make a career doing this stuff and a pretty decent living. And that really motivated me. Never before had I considered myself someone who was interested in self-employment until that first year of art school where I went, oh, I could do this. So I started exploring it for about a year and then decided I'm going to go all in on myself and like started my LLC 2018, bringing all of that like logistics oriented thinking into it where I was like, it was kind of fun making a business for me because of how analytical it all was, where I was like, okay, the step-by-step breakdown of like, first you have to make a business or like first you have to apply for like a proper business through the state. Then you can get a business bank account. Then you can get a business credit card. Then you can build credit. Then you could apply for loans or get a line of credit or do this. And then that led to this thing. And then building that like mental pathway to success was something that really got me excited. And I really never got off that train because I love building systems and figuring out like the pathway to things. And if I could go on a tangent for a second, there's a book called Rocket Fuel. And I haven't read it yet, but my friend who did really explained to me that there are two types of people. There are visionaries who are big picture people, and there are integrators, and those are the step-by-step people. And I definitely fall into like the integrator category, but every visionary needs an integrator. The integrator filters the visionary. It's like the Steve Jobs and the Wozniak, like coming together. It's like someone can have fantastical grand ideas, but someone needs to reel them back and go, okay, you have decided where we want to be, but how do we get there? Like, what are the steps?
What are the steps?
And I am very much like the steps person. Like I have a friend who is a total dreamer and he has a new business venture like every other week. And I go, okay, well, if you want to do that, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. Can you do those first 4 steps? And then he goes, probably not. And then we move on to the next business idea.
Yeah. No, I think you unlocked the code early. So thank you for sharing that. And obviously, like your parents kind of give you a nudge. So that opposite transition of like switching majors and doing something that you weren't expecting to want to do and like making, a life out of that. So yeah, you unlocked the code early. So congrats. No, thank you for sharing all of that. I think it's all very relevant to, like I said, a number of different work opportunities and the ways that people utilize streamlining their business. So as a creative photographer, keep that passion going and don't stop the vision. So that is it for our fireside chat, but I'm sure you guys have some questions. So we will open the floor up for that. And yeah, let's give Daniel a round of applause. Yes. Do we have a mic for the QA?
No, you guys are my.
Okay, we're mic. All right.
Enunciate, project.
Shout to the mountaintops.
You guys
Yes.
can also just repeat the question so it's on.
Oh, yeah.
recording.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Did you have a question?
No, I want to say and thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I should write my questions down because they come up as you guys are talking, but
Yeah.
Daniel, you are so knowledgeable and having my own business and setting some of these things up. I want to go back to Kendra's question about what are the bare minimum systems that you invested in the beginning that you can't live without? Because you can do free versions of a lot of these, but when do you make the switch to start investing in? And then part two of that question, how much do you pay in overhead of
Oof.
systems?
That's a really good question. I like that you said, when do you make the switch? Because the real answer is you don't have to invest a ton into systems until you're ready. I know that sounds like very like vague and generalized, but I was not paying for any softwares or using any like logistics systems, or I wasn't using a CRM for the first, I think I started using a CRM in 2022. So I was in business for 4 years before I was even using CRM, and my business was relatively small. So
Wow.
I was able to handle it manually. And what you're able to handle is up to you. Everyone has different capacities for these kinds of things. But for me, since I was already pretty organized, I didn't mind doing things manually because it allowed me to save money and save money to invest into other parts of the business, whether it was more gear or advertising opportunities or just the ability to have experiences that allowed me to grow as an artist, or events or conferences or panels, education, whatever it was. I thought those were more important investments than optimizing a business. So I say save the optimization for after you've built the core of your business, which is like resources and experiences and knowledge. I think those three things come first. After that, whatever is giving you the most headache, if you don't like retouching and you hate retouching and like the editing side of things is the one thing that makes you not want to create stuff, then pay for AI retouching or pay for a retoucher. Like, definitely pay those problems away. There are systems for solving almost any problem what we do. If you hate marketing, if you hate sending cold emails, like pay for chat GPT and have it write your emails for you, or pay for a copywriter and have them help you draft up like your brand's voice. Oh, I hate graphic design. I do all my own graphic design and I can't stand it. And I started using Adobe Express to help draft up mock-ups that start me on the path, because I really hate like strong arming those things. So to answer the first part of your question, I would say save as many of your resources to prioritize equipment, logistics, and education. And then once you have those things, once you're comfortable with those things, start investing into systems. Because I went a long time without doing it, and it got me to the point where I could. And my business didn't actually start scaling until like 2021-ish. And that's when I knew I was ready to buy those things. Oh, also invest in these things when there's a demand for it. Don't like get one new big client and go, oh my God, I'm so busy. I need a CRM right now, or I need to pay for AI batch retouching. Like, suss it out. Like, give yourself a grace period of like a couple months, maybe even a full year, to say, how's my business doing? Really reflect and be honest with yourself and go, was the volume to the point where this system is really worth the money?
Yeah.
I decided no until 2021. That was like 4 years in.
Great advice. Thank you. Yes, Dad. He always wastes a second. Yes, question.
How much time and effort do you yourself put into developing personal relationships with clients? With that said, that then gives you the opportunity to network through those folks, thus building out your network even further.
So since my clients are, especially on the event side, really corporate, it's hard to just catch them out and about. And I'm not like in the same like social circles as them, being a freelancer to like people who work in corporate, where there's not really a lot of overlap like in the wild. One thing I do to stay connected with people is I have an email newsletter that goes out every single month, and I have it in segments. So it's targeted to the right audiences. So I have a segment for my events clients. I have a segment for my fitness clients. I have a segment for industry colleagues and peers. And they're all kind of getting different tailored emails. And I spend probably, well, every month I have to create something for these newsletters. So I do a shoot once a month. That might take like in total, probably up to like a week of effort to like curate the shoot, create the promo materials, and like send out the marketing. And then as for follow-up, I think there are like small extra things that I do here and there that are kind of spontaneous and infrequent, like the client appreciation gifts that I put together for Christmas. Last year was the first time I tried doing it. It was, I think, a huge success. My clients were, I could visibly see how happy they were receiving those and the emotional impact that it made. So I'm definitely going to make that an annual tradition where I will be doing that every year. So I think things like that, like small client appreciation, and it doesn't have to be big like gesture, but just anything that shows like, I'm a person, I recognize you're a real person that isn't just a client to me, and I care about you as a human, and then offering like something genuine is a big step in the right direction.
And if you take that first into lunch, you're having for life.
Yes.
Yes, Tori.
Kind of a follow-up to that, from when you started versus now, how much of your business is referral-based versus paid marketing?
Oh, almost all of it is, and almost all of it will always be. That's just the nature of what we do. Everything is referral based. I actually don't invest a ton in like external marketing and advertising right now, mostly because I don't feel like my business has scaled to that point yet where I'm ready to go like massive with it. But
Even though he has Barry's as a client, like,
but so Barry's was actually a referral. That's a
yeah.
great example.
Yeah.
So I recently shot for Barry's Boot Camp, if you're familiar with the group fitness gym. They have a couple locations here in Chicago. But the way that I got that client, and whenever I get a new client that I'm not necessarily expecting, I always make sure to ask them, how did you find out about me? Like, who passed my name along, or how did you, hear about me? If someone ever says, oh, I just found your website on Google, that's crazy to me because that's never happened yet. But it's always referral based. It's always, oh, this person passed your name along, this person. So for Barry's, I asked the marketing lead, like, how did you guys find me? Because they're headquartered in Miami. So that is a huge disconnect. And they said, do you know XYZ person? And I said, I don't. And I looked them up on Instagram, and we have a ton of mutuals here in Chicago. And I realized that there are two specific people that are like the direct connection to this client. And both of them I have personally shot for. So I have done fitness photo shoots with two trainers who are at Barry's. And I'm part of this fitness community here in Chicago that they're also a part of. So that's kind of how we all came together and bonded, which led to relationships of me working with them very closely. But it had to be one of those two individuals who referred me to someone in New York who gave my name to someone in Miami. So you never know how deep the pathway is going to go, but just working with people will always lead to things. So if you don't have a lot of clients, definitely consider working for free. The shoot that I did that got me this Barry's job was initially a free shoot, and it was a little bit of out-of-pocket cost, honestly. Like, I paid some to do it, but I thought I believed in the client because I know them well. I believed in the work, and I thought it was going to be a great portfolio piece, so I definitely wanted to invest. So I made an investment up front that ended up paying for itself in the back end.
Yeah, no, that last point that you made about investing in little things to have a bigger opportunity is so valid. So thanks for sharing. Any other questions? Cool. Oh, Jay, do you have a question?
I was going to say, do
No,
you
go
make
ahead.
use of budgets?
What do you mean, do I make use of budgets?
Like, do you make like a monthly budget or like a per job budget or anything like that? Like, you're not weighing your expenses or.
No, but I have two things to say about that. The first one is jobs are so unpredictable and ranging in scale. Sometimes I do very, very small jobs. Sometimes maybe like once a year I'll get one really, really big job. And they always come in at different months of the year. So it's almost impossible to predict when I will be making money and how much money I will be making when. If you're in business long enough, so I think the past 3 years have been the first time that I could actually track stable metrics. Prior to that, my business has doubled in size every year for the first 4 years. And that sounds really impressive, and it's not, because 0 times 2 is 0. And then 1 times 2 is 2. So it was really mathematically, 200% growth is crazy, but practically we were making small jumps. Up until 2022 was when the metrics kind of stabilized, and I was making about the same money every month over the course of more than 1 year. So that's when I could finally see like, okay, here's how much I should like theoretically budget as long as I'm making over this amount per month. Like I do have my overhead expenses on monthly tracked, and I know exactly like between rent, vehicle payments, parking, and a couple other like regular charges, subscriptions and health insurance and all this other stuff. I know exactly how much I should be making per month to get through a year. And then I try to average above that. I can't necessarily control how much work is coming in, but I can set my goals accordingly. And if I find that 2 months are dipping below that point, I can pull back the reins and be a little more scarce with my personal budget. I can spend less on going out. I can spend less on wants instead of needs.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is kind of happening internally. But I think it's once you get like 2 to 3 years of consistency, that's when you can start tracking that stuff. But in the first like probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, if you're having wild shifts, you don't really have anything to go off of. So it's not worth tracking super hard.
Well, this legitimately being your own source of income since mine.
So
How do you balance
the
that?
phrase of this, I am proud to say that all of my income since starting my business has been within the industry that I'm working in. So between me shooting, me assisting for other photographers, me retouching for other photographers, doing video work for other people or in collaboration with other creators, between all those different revenue streams that are all still under the umbrella of the photography industry, that is how I've been making money ever since I started my business.
So freelance versus your actual experience, but you want LLC.
Yeah, it's all run through my LLC. So if I'm assisting a photographer, Daniel Livingstone Photography is sending out that invoice. If I'm retouching for someone, Daniel Livingstone Photography is sending out that invoice. So it's all under the umbrella of my business. But what my business does is photography industry related work.
Go ahead. Just shout out your questions. Yeah.
Back to the niche
Yes.
problem or the niche directive to pick one.
Mhm.
Can you distinguish between niche as a category of industry and niche as a way of seeing?
I like that.
That's a good one.
So that's a really good question. The question.
That's a great
So
question.
the question is, can you elaborate the difference between niching in an industry or a genre versus niching as a sense of like perspective, right? Or like personal style. I was recently, yeah. And what I was saying earlier about like how niching down and being a specialist was like the big thing for a number of years. I think ever since I can say 2018 to 2020, 2021, everyone was like specialized, niche down. They were referring to industries. You're either going to be a studio portrait photographer or a fashion photographer or a like still life photographer focusing on food and beverage, or you're going to be a sports photographer only covering sporting events. And I think ever since like COVID for sure, that has started to change where you can't just be a specialist in one subject matter. Like you can't only shoot one thing. You have to specialize in your voice or your creative style, where it's like, I'm a fitness photographer. Do I only shoot things in gyms? Not necessarily. I take my perspective as a fitness photographer and try to take this style of my personal like mission or core values of my business, which are making fitness accessible, making fitness and exercise less intimidating, and inspiring others to make health a greater priority in their lifestyles. I can take that stuff as my niche or my specialty and apply it to track and field. I can apply it to event photography, especially when I'm shooting fitness-related events or brand activations. Shooting my subject matter in a way that makes it look fun and inviting to an audience who has this stigma around it. And I think that is a lot more important now than it used to be, where you don't have, like, I'm not going to say you have to be a generalist now, but being a jack of all trades is a way better trait right now than it used to be, because clients are now asking for more out of just you, whether it's oh, we need you to shoot photo, but we also need you to shoot video. Can you shoot some stuff for a reel? Or I shoot my own stuff and the budget isn't enough to hire a retoucher, so I have to edit all my own stuff and I have to be good at retouching to get it to the point where this is acceptable to a client. So I think having a greater skill set that stays true to your, instead of perspective or style, I like to say core values because it's more like business oriented, the left brain thinking. The core values of your business need to be like omnipresent throughout your entire workflow. So maintaining that and always like the why of what you do should always be like centered.
Well said. That was a great question. Thank you for asking. A great answer. And Danielle, thank you so much for your insights. And we love having you at the set. And we look forward to working with you more.